Hi, I'm Mandy Reese-Sarah. You can read more of my ranty tangents at mandyreesarah.wordpress.com. Follow me or Twitter, or get in on some cryptocurrency fun at steemit.com/ at Mandy Reese-Sarah. Alright, if you've watched past episodes of my ranty tangents, I tend to go off on political things, but I'm gonna kind of scale that back and go in a different path. I'm giving you some full frontal history lessons. Are you ready? You are ready. So, we have this big thing about fake news and propaganda, and it's causing a lot of concern to many people. And this is justified. This is kind of scary what's going on. We're becoming North Korea if you've been paying attention. So, with that said, let's address some things. I've mentioned the Franklin cover up before, and I have referenced the White House callboy scandal. So, I want to just throw out that if what John DeCamp described in his book as false, and he named names, he named several prominent names. His book would be like slander and libel, and those names would go after him to redact it, but they haven't. Because in order to do so, they would have to face evidence, and their secrets would be out in the public eye and on TV and the internet instead of an obscure book, so they let it slide with an occasional threat to his life. Now, former director of the CIA, William Colby, gave John DeCamp the following advice. What you have to understand, John, is that sometimes there are forces and events too big, too powerful, with so much at stake for other people or institutions that you cannot do anything about them, no matter how evil or wrong they are, and no matter how dedicated or sincere you are, or how much evidence you have. This is simply one of the hard facts of life you have to face. Well, if you remember Oliver North getting crapped upon for the Iran-Contra thing, those sickos preyed on young ones who were so young that they couldn't be they could not be proper witnesses to testify in court. Children ended up with STDs, and this was hushed up. Wikipedia already removed the page due to exposure from the pedogate, but luckily, the New York Times has an archive, and we have also found out that West Point and Fort Dix both have similar cases of abuse, sexual and physical, in a daycare, and in which the Army brushes away concerns lest it rock the boat. The DEA has underage sex parties with no consequence, literally solicited underage prostitutes while in Colombia investigating a cartel. Oh, and by the way, those sex workers worked for that very cartel they were investigating. The U.S. ambassador to Belgium, who was assigned by Hillary Clinton, solicited children. Her State Department covered it up. Funny enough, in a not funny way, is that Belgium also dealt with Marc Dutroux, who was arrested for running a child porn ring, kidnapping, murder, things that echo the pedogate issue, including ties to the country's elite and catering to their depraved tastes. DynCorp and Halliburton trafficked women through the Eastern Bloc. Children were abused. American citizens don't recall it as much because, most attention it got was C-SPAN, and who's gonna watch C-SPAN when there's I don't know, baseball, football, basketball, soccer, NASCAR, golf, reality TV, unscripted television, and cartoons. Who's going to be watching this stuff? No one. Absolutely no one. In November of last year, 2016, Norway had this huge pedophile ring bust. Okay? Mainstream media covered it November 20th, 27th, whatever. Uh, they removed their articles. Seriously, the New York Times covered it. But now they redacted that. The AP redacted their things. Why are Americans not supposed to know about this? And it indicates a cover up. Because you also got why Reddit is banning any discussion about Pedogate, why YouTube is pulling videos and comments about it and demonetizing videos that address it. Twitter has banned a user for outing a pedophile ring operating on their servers. So, why is there so much energy being put into spinning it as a hoax and false narrative? They don't do that unless they're covering something up, and this is something big. And I think any decent person would want an investigation if children are at risk. Are you aware that Marco Rubio had brought attention to diplomats trafficking people in the United States only to have it brushed off by the State Department? This makes me wonder if this is one of those reasons why he was, cut out of the race early, if the indications that WikiLeaks has revealed that there was a lot of tampering with the primaries. If his stance on being anti-human trafficking had any bearing to do in that, So, are you aware that in 2000, a council that Hillary Clinton led tried bringing legitimacy to prostitution and hardcore pornography to the UN? So, there's been this precedent set time and again that our government turns a blind eye to the trafficking of children. They don't give a crap about the plebes. We're cattle and oxen to them. The UN doesn't care. They simply have no fucks to give unless it involves opportunity to rape kids. It doesn't help matters when people of dubious ethics help cover up pedophile who worked for the BBC now runs the New York Times. And the BBC is still covering up sex crimes. I mean, this shit is everywhere. Literally everywhere. When do we, as a people, start taking the topic seriously instead of dismissing it because it sounds outlandish that wealthy people do horrible things because they can get away with it, and our government is complicit? If you want the truth to be red-pilled, as they say, then do some research beyond the scope of what the media feeds you. If the truth matters to you, then get your Googling skills, although DuckDuckGo works too, and search for any of these topics that I've mentioned. Over at Steemit, there's going to be a link down below. It's what I'm telling you now is I'm reading what I wrote. So this thing that I wrote has so many links because I did my research. The evidence is out there. I collected it for you. Go give it a gander. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm going to tell you what I found. I'm going to share that with you. You make your own choice. I'm giving you my opinion on it, though. I think that we've reached an age where we have such marvelous technology that the way the world isn't how it could be. And we should strive for something better. And I understand that there's going to be, you're going to break some eggs while you're doing this sort of epic world building. But in the end, we're all just animals on this planet. We are like fleas on a dog, okay? The human species are fleas on a dog. And things like human trafficking and deliberate provocation of wars. I mean, Eisenhower had a warning about beware of the military industrial complex because it's going to get fucked up. Abraham Lincoln had concerns about what corporations would do to this country. And lo and behold, they were right. Fucking Dune even called it. So, I don't know. It's not one of those things where you can just say, oh, it's an easy solution. There are no easy solutions. I think it's important that everybody studies their history. There's a reason why the CIA isn't given much, screen time in schools. There's not a whole lot of chapters dedicated to what exactly they do. And it's a fascinating history. It started during World War II with the OSS. And they tried to do the best with what they had. And as World War II went on, they brought Nazi scientists over to the United States and instilled them in various labs, universities, hospitals. Go ahead, go look up Project Paperclip. They used Nazi torture techniques on American citizens. The book Manchurian Candidate is based off of that, and I guess it's easier to believe fiction than the truth. So if you want something interesting to while away your time one day, go look up Project MKUltra. It's an umbrella for a shitload of other projects relating to mind control via drugs and torture. If you ever watch The Men Who Stare at Goats, they make a mention of it, and Kevin Spacey's character goes and makes use of it. In 1977, the vast majority of the files relating to those projects were destroyed. Go ahead and look up Project Artichoke. That's where they got people addicted to morphine. And just for official, and I know I've mentioned it before, in 1995, Bill Clinton issued an apology to the victims of human experimentation by the government. The CIA founded the Finders, a group that kidnapped and trafficked children. There was a report written by retired FBI Special Agent Ted Gunderson that discussed it, and I'm going to read from that. Just a short little paragraph, and it pretty much sums it up as much as what we need to know. All investigation of the Finders cult by the FBI, U.S. Customs, and U.S. Customs wrote this big-ass report about it. Very fascinating read. And local law enforcement was ordered stopped by the U.S. Justice Department on the grounds of, quote-unquote, national security. And the matter of the Finders cult was turned over to the CIA as an internal security matter, since the Finders is and has been a domestic and international covert operation of the CIA. So, what is the Finders? Basically, the Finders were a group that would kidnap children, and they trafficked those children. And they basically developed these children to be assets to be used to entrap politicians, diplomats, corporate and law enforcement officials. They would sell child victims to wealthy perverts to raise money for covert operations, and train some of the victims to be professional operatives and assassins. And that ties into the whole MKUltra thing. When you take that into consideration, and things like the DynCorp and Halliburton trafficking, it's obvious that sex slavery is very much alive in America. And you'd think, being the greatest nation on the face of this earth, and this is said with a bit of a bias because I'm American. Patriotism is drilled into our heads in elementary school as we do our salute to the flag. It's hard to explain. I've been to 2 other countries. Canada's pretty awesome. Mexico, it was a border town. It was rough. It was a rough neighborhood, that's all I'm saying. I liked Canada better. Mexico has better food, though. But whatever. I am aware that the United States is but a pond in the greater landscape of things. And I am aware that there are things that go on outside of this pond that I know. And I know that just like with humanity being fleas upon the earth's, dog, when something taints the blood system of that dog and all these fleas are feeding off that tainted blood, it doesn't spell good things for the fleas, is all I'm saying. So, when I first published my little expose with all my links and whatnot, that day, the San Francisco office of the FBI hashtagged human trafficking. FBI stands with law enforcement partners, community, to combat human trafficking. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're onto something. To sum this up, there is a military contractor named Deagel, Deagel, and they did a report in 2015. And this report states that America is doomed. We are fucked, bent over a log, without the benefit of lube. And let me tell you why. In 2015, population 321 million. A density of about 33 inhabitants per square kilometer. GDP per capita, 55K. Forecast, 2025. Population is down to 61 million. Where did 260 million people go? Curious. Population density is down to 6 inhabitants per square kilometer. GDP per capita, 15,000. And that's on average, which means slave state. And here's the thing. Military budget in year 2015, 781 billion. We're number one in the world. Okay? Forecast for 2025 is military budget down to 8.2 billion. I would love to hear your guys' opinion because I'm scratching my head on this as to what cataclysm is going to strike America to where our population is a fraction of what it once was. Why military spending is so hugely cut, because it's like domestic occupation. If they pulled all of their military from bases overseas and brought them back stateside, so they didn't operate those military bases, or they sold them to the countries that they're housed in. I'm scratching my head on this one. I'm very curious because as a writer, my mind goes into all these different tangents of, ooh, what's the story behind this? And, when the Hunger Game looks to be like inspiration for America's future, gotta scratch my head and wonder why. So, please, if you have found this podcast interesting, go ahead, like it, share it, leave an opinion. I enjoy feedback, and I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for listening.